Why, hello there. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Torn Tuesday, your weekly dose of all things Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, Tolkien. We've been doing the show for 10 years, and Cliff Broadway has been with the
Hello.
One Ring for 20 years, and you're still here, uh, giving us
Hello.
everything that we want. Hello, Cliff.
Hello there. And it's a great thing. It is a great thing um, to have, such a noble cause to just be with Tolkien fans all these years. It is, to me, the greatest blessing to be surrounded by people who love his books and love the energy of pop culture and that changes and comes and goes. I mean, for a long time, we've been looking at fandom and experiencing fandom in a way since the 1950s when the books first appeared, and the way that college kids would argue on campus in the 60s about Tolkien. I've seen some recent BBC documentaries footage, some things that are really remarkable. I mean, you think we're arguing about Tolkien now? You should have heard the way that kids on campus were arguing about the professor. It's kind of delightful that this level of engagement with the fandom includes the highs and the lows, but everybody's very energized, and that's exciting to see. The literature itself is so strong and so adored generationally. This is amazing to me that the next wave of pop culture is going to be what? A TV streaming series. This is a whole new thing. We're in new uncharted territory with how Professor Tolkien is being adapted and reconsidered. So it's a really interesting place to be. I tweeted about it. I was not vague. I really feel like we're at a crossroads as we look at a literary legacy that's way, way bigger than I could faithfully and honorably describe. We're at the crossroads between a literary legacy and what is now just a huge commercial product with a price tag on it, with a B for billion, and we're all raising our eyebrows going, wow, this is really happening? What's going on? So we're here to talk about it, and we're here to share all that enthusiasm and all that stuff. There's a lot of wiggle room for interpretation and excitement, and if you're concerned, if you're bemused and it's all mysterious, what's going on? We're here to help decipher some of this mischief. Welcome to theonering.net. That's why we've been doing this for 2 decades, so we can share this experience communally. And I appreciate that good sense of good faith and egalitarian quality that we've always had with TORN. That's our playful acronym for the onering.net is TORN. And I want to say thank you to this wonderful live audience joining us. Hello, I want a special shout out to The Dragon Demands. Some of his Game of Thrones videos and now his Amazon Rings of Power videos are really thought-provoking and intriguing, and he's very concise and has all the good details. I want to say a big shout out to him for giving a shout out to us recently. The 23 questions that we just did recently about what do fans really want to know, burning questions for J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay, the good folks working as showrunners on the Rings of Power. Well, not to be outdone, but Vanity Fair came out just yesterday on February 14th with a powerhouse new piece of 10 questions given straight to the showrunners. And aren't we lucky to have with us tonight a very special guest who will be introduced after a few bits and bobs. We've got some upfront news to consider, and then we're going to bring Joanna Robinson, Esquire, delicious. We're going to bring her on to join us for some delicious chat and conversation about all these things in Vanity Fair. It's going to be a lot of fun. So,
But there's
thank
been
you.
so
Hello.
much this
Hello,
week.
everybody in the chat.
Cliff, I feel like last week's show is like the first age, and in this last 7 days, we've entered the second age and the third age. There has been so much information between our last show and this, like we couldn't even cover it in one show. And then there was a trailer that we spent 5 hours dissecting with millions of fans. It was our most watched live stream, guys.
Yeah.
I just looked at the stats.
We did.
We at one point we had 56,000 concurrent viewers. watching our trailer analysis. I can't
on
even.
on all of our on our combined streams. It's fantastic. How
Cliff,
about that?
56,000 people were watching you at one time. I hope you weren't picking your nose.
I'm glad that I was dressed for the part. I want to remind everyone that that beautiful patchwork quilt dressing gown with the brightly colored, satin squares, that was a beautiful satin dressing gown. But you know what? That was Bilbo's dressing gown from An Unexpected Journey. It wasn't the hef. There's so many. Even Mr. Tim Gray made a joke. I laughed along on Twitter with a lot of people thinking, was I trying to do the Hugh Hefner thing? No, it was Tummy's hat. It was the hat. The problem was if I had been wearing my, Bilbo Baggins wig instead of that hat.
No, you had a pipe, you had the robe, you had.
Yes, but.
Well, it is. Well, there's so much to dive in. There's so much information that Vanity Fair released over 3 different pieces. So I want to dive in real quick, but there was a bunch of other news this week.
Let's have the news.
So let's have the news. Where's that photo? Ooh, I got something to show you guys special later. So. The first thing is, Cliff, did you hear the Saul Zaentz news?
The Saul Zaentz news?
Yeah. Explain. We found out on Thursday of last week that Saul Zaentz is putting their Lord of the Rings rights up for sale. And a lot of people were like, who is Saul Zaentz? I thought Warner Brothers and New Line made the movie. Can you explain who Saul Zaentz and the Saul Zaentz company is?
Saul Zaentz is a famous and multi-Oscar winning Best Picture producer of film. And we're talking Jack Nicholson in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and Tom Hulce in Amadeus. Best Picture winners. The English Patient. All of these are movies produced and shepherded along by the late great Saul Zaentz. Little known, within that Oscar-winning, rarefied air of movies such as Amadeus and The English Patient, there's also a little nook in there nestled in for Ralph Bakshi and his United Artists release of The Lord of the Rings, the first big feature film adaptation of J.R.R. Tolkien, and that was also Saul Zaentz. And this is the company that he created, Saul Zaentz Enterprises. It was Tolkien Enterprises. That's right. Tolkien Enterprises, working out of Berkeley, California. And they were, Saul Zaentz's license holding company. And they had the Hobbit rights and the Lord of the Rings rights sold to them. I think that transferred maybe to another party. But after Professor Tolkien sold the rights to pay for his kids' way through college.
Inheritance tax. It was to pay for it.
Yeah, the inheritance. Hello, because he was making a lot of money as a popular author of a very, very successful book series, The Lord of the Rings.
So you're telling me that Ralph Bakshi and the animators of The Hobbit and New Line all got their film rights from Saul Zaentz.
Yes, that includes.
He's the master.
That includes Arthur Rankin Jr. and Jules Bass, famous for making all the Rankin and Bass Christmas specials, and Rudolph's Shiny New Year and Frosty the Snowman. They're also responsible for getting into bed with Peter S. Beagle, famous fantasy author of The Last Unicorn. That's all Rankin Bass.
But that has nothing to do with Tolkien rights. So basically, you're
no. Who worked on The Lord of the Rings for Ralph Bakshi? It was Peter Beagle who rewrote the screenplay for Ralph Bakshi.
Oh, that's right.
It's all connected. It is all connected. So, yes, it is Saul Zaentz who has made that same deal with New Line Cinema, the same deal that was made with United Artists, and even the video games, all those things, and the toys, the merch, all the merchandise, all that stuff, even the Burger King goblets, all have Saul Zaentz. My board game that I'm playing with my friends, Journeys in Middle Earth, you look on the plastic figurines on the bottom and it says SZE SZE.
So everything,
Solzent Enterprises.
this is everything basically. All of the
Everything.
rights are up for sale.
Yeah. And now, this is a distinction that should be made from Amazon Prime. And let's tell the audience, Justin, a little bit more about what you know, that these television rights are a new deal that is worked out separately from the existing Tolkien rights sale that helped us get the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings and Hobbit films. Let's make that distinction clear for the audience, perhaps. One quick second, just to give them context, right? It's a new deal. Amazon's facing a new deal. Right.
Yeah, because the rights that Solzent's had everything except television. They could do everything except television. And then that's what Amazon acquired from the Tolkien family and the Tolkien estate was television rights. And that's what they're doing now. So now everything's for sale. We're talking theme parks, video games, toys, merchandise, and more movies for theatrical release.
Everything's for sale. Does that make you shake in your boots a little bit?
No, I'm excited, and we're gonna we're putting together an awesome show in the coming weeks to talk about all the opportunities, because I've heard some whispers on the grapevine of who's bidding on this, and it's pretty exciting. But so that's the big news that came out last week before all the other big news. But other stuff that came out yesterday, Lord of the Rings: The War of the Rohirrim put out. The first two photos, first two concept images. Cliff, did you see those Oliphants attacking? I
mean, wow,
Rohan.
So, imagine Oliphants, the Mumakil, coming over the grasslands of Rohan. I've never thought to imagine that. When I'm thinking about the story of Helm Hammerhand, I think about this rabid figure going out into the darkness and killing, like a stark ghost figure out on the heath. I think all kinds of really spooky and gothic Jane Eyre type of stuff. The Emily Bronte stuff where there's always some phantom figure out there on the grasslands. It's very that Helm Hammer stuff. Leads into gothic horror in a unique way. For Tolkien.
I don't know how you got to Emily. I don't know how you got to Emily Bronte through all this. All I know is if you go to the OneRing.net, Warner Brothers sent us a high-res version of one of the pieces of artwork of a Mumakil attacking Rohan, and it's so exciting. You can see the artwork, and the big news that pleased everybody was the producer of the War of the Rohirrim movie announced that Weta Workshop, Richard Taylor, John Howe, Alan Lee are all on board creating art for this new anime film, and Philippa Boyens has handed off screenwriting duties to her daughter and her creative partner. So Philippa Boyens' daughter is writing the War of the Rohirrim movie, and it basically, and Peter Jackson posted it on his personal Facebook page. If you go to facebook.com/Peter Jackson, you can see that he's sharing it. So I mean, it's basically they got the band back together, and for a lot of fans, I gotta be honest, Amazon might have spent a fortune on that Super Bowl spot, but a lot of fans as of yesterday are like more hyped for War of the Rohirrim cartoons. Than what Amazon's doing, and it's amazing.
I don't have any surprise level at that. I'm actually thrilled that people want to experience something new, a new take on Tolkien, as much as they want to revisit the familiar, and that's why we go back and read the books. That's also the reason why we go back and watch Peter Jackson's movies over and over again on the extended editions
and that's why they're out in 4K. Well, Cliff, we just got late breaking news. Sci-Fi Wire is now reporting that Amazon's Rings of Power teaser has set Super Bowl records for most views within the first day. That teaser trailer, that teaser, 60 seconds, got 257 million views in the first day. That is the most views for any movie trailer, whether it's a Marvel movie or a Game of Thrones TV show, or anything.
The first Phantom Menace.
This is huge. I don't know if Phantom Menace had a Super Bowl commercial, but this for Super Bowl ads, this is the biggest, and it's just a taste taste of what Jeff Bezos is spending $1 billion on. And we were excited to do a 5-hour breakdown of the trailer. But I tell you, the breakdown that we did of the trailer couldn't have happened without some of the information that was released earlier in the week, starting on Thursday, and which Vanity Fair published the very first look and the very first photos of the cast of Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power. It's an amazing thing that you can see it's written by Anthony Breznican and Joanna Robinson, and we are excited to have Joanna Robinson with us today. Hello,
hi.
Joanna.
Oh, hi.
Hey.
Thanks for having me. Hi to both of you. And thank you both so much. I got to speak to both of you when I was working on this project, which I was working on for a really long time. You were both so nice to talk to me for it, as well as some other folks from the One Ring. So thank you all so much for your help with this. I really appreciate it.
It's great to have you here. It's such a pleasure.
And we were so excited, so excited to talk to you. And I tell you, it goes a long way that you reached out to fans like in the earliest days of putting these articles together, because I think one of the big things that we've all been screaming is Peter Jackson had a relationship with fans, and Amazon doesn't really. And so the fact that you reached out and was like, hey, what are you guys feeling right now? It felt like we were being listened to.
I mean, my goal when I do stuff like this, which is not that often, but if I do something that's news breaking, I want to make sure that I'm giving the diehards, the fans, the information that they want, that you're curious about. And we were able to do that in a couple different ways. We had like 3 pieces that go up this last week, addressing as much as we could without spoiling things, without, giving too much of the bag away, all that sort of stuff. So doing our best to listen to you all, to the folks on Reddit, like all that sort of thing, because I want to give the people what they want as much as I can. So that's the goal.
I remember that some of the questions that you were asking us early on in secret, we couldn't say anything about anything, was what we wanted to know about. What did we want to see? What photos should you ask for? What questions should you ask the showrunners? So you kind of know what Cliff and I want to hear. Is there anything that didn't make it into this piece that you can tell us now that might have been put on the cutting room floor?
That's a great question. I'm sure I will think of something so you're gonna ask me some questions tonight, right? That's
okay. So
yeah,
let's explain the rules of the game, folks. So
yeah.
obviously Joanna knows a lot about this show. She has seen the first 3 episodes in their incomplete state. I don't think they have score yet because Howard Shore hasn't recorded anything. But is he involved? We don't know. We can't talk about it. It's very complicated. Is Weta Workshop involved? We don't know. Nothing's confirmed yet. So what we're going to do is Joanna knows too much. And I don't want to be spoiled. And Amazon doesn't want some things out yet. So what we're going to do is Joanna's got a red card and a yellow card.
And my cat's here also to make sure that I don't spill any secrets. Yeah, so red card, yellow card.
So red card, she can't talk about it, move on. And yellow card, let's find a different way to ask the question. And we went to Reddit, we went to Discord, we went to all of our platforms to ask what fans have, what follow-up fan questions have. So as I pull up some Reddit questions here, Cliff, anything that is on your mind that hasn't been answered or fleshed out yet?
I'm just really, really glad that up front we got real specifics about what rights access they have to what sections of what books. Do you know how much airtime we went through?
I know. I know. I asked that question. So I got to talk to the guys. So by the way, Patrick and JD, who have not been out there that much, so people don't really have a chance to know them yet, I've talked to really, the gamut of people in this industry. These are really nice guys. These are good, nice guys. And whatever you think about the final product, that is up to you. And I'm not here to convince you one way or another. But I want you to know that these guys genuinely care so much about this, genuinely love Tolkien, and are really, really trying to give you the show that you want. If they don't give it to you, that's, that happens. But I know the intention is there. And the other thing I want to say about that is, yeah, so we got, some people had questions about the timeline of when we talked to them, right? That's a question I saw on Reddit, because they were wondering if some of our information was old. We talked to them twice, Anthony Brezikin and I, over multiple hour sessions, once before we saw the episodes and once after we saw the episodes, and all of that took place in around November, early December. So none of the information is that old, that they gave us.
And so this would be after they wrapped filming. So the full first season is wrapped. It's in the can, as they say. And that you talked to them after that.
Yeah, and I knew you guys were really, I've not only you, but everyone I've talked to was really interested in, like, what exactly is on the table here? Are we talking similar? How do we do the second age if we don't have the Silmarillion or the Unfinished Tales? All of that. So I asked the question multiple times to try to get the set in stone answer for you guys. The questions that I've been seeing subsequently, and the answer we got, right, which we've printed a couple times, which is they have rights to the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy, including the appendices and The Hobbit, and nothing else. And I've seen some really great forensic breakdowns from fans going through the appendices and the various songs and the various chapters and seeing what second age material is in there, and even like the tiniest bit of first age material that they could reference within the bounds of what they're allowed to have. However, sorry, I don't know if this is too long-winded of an ansar, but however,
no, it's ideal. It's amazing.
The main question I've seen is that there are a couple things that people feel like they've seen that feel like they contradict what they've said about having access to things. Specifically, the maps of Numenor that was the first thing that they released on social. I asked that question. I did. I don't have an answer for you. I know that some people are reporting. I don't have this information. Some people are reporting that they are allowed to, on a case-by-case basis, go to the Tolkien estate to ask for permission to certain things. I don't have that intel. That may or may not be true, but that is not intel that was given to me. I was told only the trilogy and The Hobbit, and that they had lore experts on staff there helping them navigate. Like, it's very complicated, right? Because if you're trying to tell a story of something that appears in the Silmarillion, but you're not allowed to do the Silmarillion, but you kind of want to tell the story anyway, you got to have some experts on hand to say, you can't use that name. You don't have the right to that name, sort of thing. So it's a really, really tricky, fraught sort of rights maze to navigate. And some people,
indeed,
I've seen have been like a little frosty, saying, why would you even bother doing the second age if you don't have the rights to the Silmarillion? And my understanding, and you guys would know more than I would about the Tolkien estate and their feelings, but my understanding is that because as you mentioned, like the rights have been carefully guarded at the Tolkien estate, through the decades, because of Christopher Tolkien and his attitude towards not wanting the commodification of his dad's work.
Let's call it for what it is. He had a very draconian, very protective stance toward his father's legacy. And honestly, I understand and fully appreciate that. And so of all the critics who've been coming at me lately saying that I'm just a shill for Amazon, I'm telling you, I, more than anybody else, and a lot of other Tolkien people, really do understand that Christopher wanted his father's work to live in academic proportions to his other academic work. The consumption by popular culture was never, ever, ever Christopher's thing. He never liked it, never liked Peter's films. He never liked any of it. And while I totally still appreciate and understand Christopher's regard, and that leads us to why certain deals were made and certain things changed when Christopher decided to retire, right?
Right. So he retires and has, of course, since passed away. And, there's new captains over at the Tolkien estate deciding what will and will not go. But in the spirit of that protectiveness, my understanding is that the Silmarillion, since it was sort of Professor Tolkien's most cherished work. This was the thing that he was more interested, right? Was the mythology versus the novels. Since it's his most cherished and protected work, I think, I mean, I don't know what their long game is money wise over the Tolkien estate, whether they're saving it to leverage it for mega bucks or whether it's a sentimental thing. And they're like, well, this is the one thing that we're going to hold on to because it was dad's or granddad's, favorite
You know
thing
what?
that he did.
And I would love that. That's a lovely way of looking at it. Yeah, that's just as likely. Yeah.
All right, we're getting a bunch of like
Okay.
very specific questions. So if I
Hold
hope
on,
you
hold on,
guys
Justin.
did.
I know we've got big questions jumping, but let me ask one little thing, my dear Joanna. Reading in between the lines real quickly in
Sure.
your article
Yeah.
from yesterday, I think we might have a hint at whether or not they do or do not have a case-by-case access to the family and their decision-making process. Just a hint, if we read in between the lines, because he says right here that as long as we fit between the lines, you know the part what I'm talking about. It says right here, worked in conjunction with world-renowned Tolkien scholars and the Tolkien estate to make sure that we connected the dots were Tolkienian, that the ways we connected the dots were Tolkienian and gelled with the experts and the estate's understanding of the material, Payne says, unquote. I mean, doesn't that kind of hint? Maybe. And you can yellow card or red card, but doesn't that
it
hint
speaks
that...
to at least an open dialogue, right, between the Tolkien estate. It speaks to at least the fact that Tolkien estate has the ability to weigh in on something, whether or not that involves rubber stamping certain things, rights to certain things. I don't know, but it certainly does mean that they were having an ongoing conversation. So yeah.
All right.
Awesome.
Small question here from the YouTube chat that I see. In one of your articles, you claim that the sword that we see is Narsil. Is that speculation that you think it's Narsil, or is that a confirmation that we're looking at Narsil?
I'm gonna say, I'm gonna be safe and say pretty sure.
Yeah. Okay. And then the top question from Reddit, actually from the moderator of the subreddit, I think there's a little confusion. He says from on in the community when reading the articles as they are written.
Yeah.
Are the articles speculation on your part, or are you hinting at stuff you've actually seen but can't really explicitly say 100% this is that and this is that? Like, is there any speculation in your article?
In the cover story and the article that I put up, the questions answered one, hardly any is speculation. If I'm saying something, I'm saying something. If I, when you get to something like, okay, so there's the mystery man in the trailer, right? The stranger, as Amazon is calling him, or the meteor man, I think is Fellowship of Fans is calling him.
Yeah, I think that's picked up very popularly now, calling him Meteor Man.
Meteor Man.
Yeah.
I like it. It's catchy. When Brez and I saw, obviously in the 3 episodes that we saw, we don't know who the identity of that person is.
Right.
Even if we did, we wouldn't say it, but I'll just say to you, I don't know. I genuinely don't know who that person is. But like, I hope a lot of people, I was like, could this be, one of the Maya? Like, could this be a wizarding type figure? There are other candidates that people have for who it could be.
No, but I love the way you think.
But that was the question that I had. So I asked them. So that's why. So when I put down, here's what I asked, are we looking at wizards? Are we looking at 3 wizards? Like, let me rattle off 3 wizard names that we know. So we're looking at, and then I printed word for word the answer that I got. So like, that's the closest I can get to like, is that speculation? Yes, in a way, because my brain went, is this a wizard? But I'm not saying it is or it isn't. That's the question I asked. That's the answer I got. With Brez's write-up of the trailer, that was definitely couched in much more speculative language, so I can understand the confusion. He's like, it seems like it could be and seems like it might be. I think that was just Brez being really trying to be really careful about not spoiling things that we know. But I think you can I think I could confidently say that neither he nor I are making any like wildly speculating or making anything up that we haven't already seen with our eyeballs. So.
Okay. Let's talk about a couple people that Amazon had previously announced. First off, John Howe. Do you have any more clarity the extent of John Howe's involvement beyond drawing a map?
I don't have details. No, I do know that they are still eager to cite him as someone who was involved. The way that they're excited to call out the names of people who are respected in the community as being involved. Just as you were mentioning the Rohirrim project, the way in which Philippa and Peter and something are giving their stamp of approval, that matters in fandom. So Amazon wants to let you know that John Howe was at least involved at one point, but I don't know the full extent.
Okay. And then the other person that they announced in that John Howe video was also Tom Shippey. Mm-hmm. And I saw in your article that there's just a briefest mention of he did, and then he did an interview, and then he left the project. Is there any hint of like how much he was involved with in the writer's room, or if the split was amicable or anything like that?
Well, what I can say is that from everyone we talked to at Amazon, including JD and Patrick and the execs, all had nothing but like nice, glowing kind things to say about Tom. Whether or not that's pure PR, who knows? But I will just say that like nary a storm cloud across anyone's face when they were talking about Tom Shippey, nothing but respect and positivity. And then when we reached out to Tom to try to get his side of the story, unsurprisingly, he's locked down under an NDA and can't talk to us. He was very congenial about it. Was the nicest no comment I've ever received in my life. So like there just does not seem to be massive hard feelings that at least spilled out over into the conversation that we had, but we tried to report as faithfully as we could all the information that we got on that without speculating, because we don't want to speculate something we don't have an on the record answer for. So that was
Peter Jackson made a big strong effort with the first hour of Fellowship and the first hour of The Hobbit to really stay as book accurate as possible. And I think he acknowledges this in the appendices by saying something along the lines of, we've got to get everybody on board like first, and then take them where we're going to take him, which is complete, might deviate. Was there any talk or discussion with the showrunners of a certain level of faithfulness, at least early on?
I would say that there wasn't any conversation about, we're going to get it super faithful right at the beginning and then get wilder and looser. And by the end, there's going to be green ghosts swarming and Gonor's.
Sauron's going to be riding a dragon into battle.
None of that. They have talked about their concern about like showing their bona fides and really wanting to like let people know, right? Really want the fandom to know that they care, that they are paying attention to details. But from what I've seen, again, without spoiling anything in a major way, I will say that there are lore details right at the top that I think people will be excited to see. But it's not as if they're, given the structure of what they're working with. It's funny when Brez and I were talking to them, and I said we talked to them twice, and the first time I think Brez called the source material that they had like bare bones that they sort of had to flesh out. And in the second conversation we had, Patrick said something really interesting where he's like, can I go back to that thing you said about bare bones? He's like, we don't feel that way at all. We feel like we have a really rich world that we've been given to play in. Like it's all here. But what's true from a TV storytelling, and TV storytelling is different from film storytelling. Like, let's just get that out of the way, right?
Yes.
But what's true from a TV storytelling point of view is that given what they have, I mean, let's not call it bare bones, I suppose, if they push back on that, but given what they have, they are going to have to flesh it out. And so there is going to have to be stuff that they invented. I've heard the show referred to on Reddit and elsewhere as like fan fiction. They're like, it's just fan fiction. And I'm like, I mean, kind of, but heck, I love fan fiction. So, it's fan fiction with a I mean, I'm sure Amazon would not prefer me to call it fan fiction, but it's fan fiction with like a steel spine of lore at the center of it that they're not contradicting. They're not deviating from that core lore, and like things that happened. And that's not anything that they're changing. But if you're wondering about, okay, what was so-and-so's motivation? Why did they do this? If Tolkien hasn't explicitly provided it, these talented writers are going to, try to spin you a yarn that makes sense to them.
It's
and hopefully
it's
does.
something that I'm looking forward to a great deal, because in the appendix, you know very well in the simplest of statements that Professor Tolkien says Gil-galad didn't like the looks of that guy, and and said, "No, Avon lady, we're not going to buy what you're selling here." And I'm speaking of Anatar, of course. Now, even though Professor Tolkien gives us a very brief, super brief snippet of what that dynamic would be, can you imagine what the writers can still flesh out of that much? That one sentence. They can get Anatar showing up and being all kinds of schmoozy, flickering his long eyelashes, maybe showing a little leg, and trying to sell some ring-making stuff. And Gil-galad probably saying, "You know what? I've heard enough." Just imagine the dialogue of Gil-galad saying to Anatar, or even if he doesn't get to cross the borders of Lindon and doesn't even get all the way into the waterfront areas to go to the main city, even at the borders of the region, imagine Elrond as an envoy standing there at the borders of the land and saying, "No, we've had enough." And then Anatar fuming and going back to Celebrimbor and making things far, far worse for the elves. It gives Sauron more and more motivation to get worse and worse as he goes along. All of this stuff is hidden away within one or two sentences that Tolkien has given us. You guys get where I'm going at, right?
Cliff, it feels like you should be writing for season 3 of Rings of Power.
I hope you're watching, Amazon.
I liked your pitch.
You know what?
So a question keeps popping up on our Facebook. A few people on Facebook have asked this, but did Amazon provide any of the writers to interview for this first look?
No. Beyond JD and Patrick, we did not talk to anyone in the writers' room. I have spoken to some people in the writers' room, but nothing officially.
Yeah. The Dragon Demands, that's from another fandom, but they're in our chat, and they say
he's the best. He's the best, that guy.
Yeah, he says your recent article mentioned elves have British accents, hobbits have Irish accents. Westron doesn't exist yet. So is this a universal translation? Like, so all of, I think he's asking, so all the Harfoots going to be sound Irish?
Well, so the only audio you guys have heard of the Harfoots are the 2 lines that are in the teaser trailer that dropped at the Super Bowl, right? And I would say that that's a good sampling of the accent work that I heard. I mean, but there's modulation the same way that there is, let's say, in the Jackson films, where Elijah Wood's Britishish accent and Sean Astin's Britishish accents are 2 different classes, right? And then like Dom and Billy are doing something else entirely, so it's like I wouldn't say that it is super codified in that way, but I would say that the Harfoots that I saw all sounded like they lived together, and the dwarves that I saw all sounded like they lived together, and the elves that I saw, not all of them, but yeah, so it's I wouldn't say it's as strict as that, but I think they wanted to make an auditory difference between the various races and families. Yeah.
Can you provide any reaction to Lenny Henry as a Harfoot?
That is something that I would love to see.
By the way, I was going through the One Ring archives, and we found an article from 2000 that made it to newspapers in New Zealand about the accents, because Frodo and Sam were from LA, and so it was top of mind 20 years ago that what's up with the accents? Like, we're so nervous. So we're having the same conversations now.
Here's anyone who's followed my work, because I've covered like other genre stuff before, and people who follow my work know that I feel very strongly about accent work. And I feel very strongly that if like you can't do the accent, you shouldn't do the accent. And the way I feel about like Elijah Wood and Sean Astin in the trilogy is like, is it identifiably perfectly a recognizable regional British accent that they're doing? No. Sean Astin gets closer than Elijah Wood, but no. Is it consistent in a way that doesn't bother me? Yes. Like if your vowels are all consistent, it doesn't bother me. This is why Dinklage on Thrones, I love him. He's a genius, but like his accent was often all over the map. So,
yeah.
So one of the rumors that we got last summer is that they were filming the same scenes in English and in Quenya.
Oh.
Is there more Elvish in this show than there was in Peter's movies?
I would not say more. No.
Okay.
As far as I can tell you.
Going back to the. I was just going to say about Meriadoc, and Pippin. Mm-hmm. You just sound different when you're from Buckland. Meriadoc is just from Buckland. He's a little bit queer, as the other Shire folk think. Those people who live in Buckland, they're a little bit weird over there. That was Tolkien's riff on that. I always found that.
They sound like they're from Manchester. It's fine. It's totally
fine. It's lore accurate. A bunch of questions on Reddit about, was the first teaser photo from last summer of the two trees in Tyrion, was that intentional misdirection?
No.
Okay.
Hold on. Can I add to that? Addendum to that, Justin? Seriously, they spent so much effort showing us the Silmarillion on all their actors' Instagram feeds. It was everywhere. It was over and over again. It was deliberate. It was on the nose, telling us, oh, we're reading the Silmarillion out here while we're working hard in New Zealand. And then ultimately we find out they do not have any licensed material from the Silmarillion. That adds into what Justin was just saying. Why give us the very, very first teaser image of a Second Age show, leading us into greater confusion because it's a pre-First Age image where the light of the two trees is still in full form?
That's a great question that I don't know the answer to. I'm not red carding you. I genuinely don't know the answer.
Okay.
But I think it's a reasonable question to ask.
There are a bunch of comments, too many to name, too many to list, on hair. Hair. There's so much comments about hair. Sure. So let me start with Galadriel's hair.
Okay.
A lot of fans appreciated Peter Jackson putting a glow filter on the lens and having a little starry. We saw it in the appendices, right? Like they had a starry light thing that putting stars in her eyes.
Yeah, that was cool.
So, I guess in the trailer, like her hair looks unspectacular, and so is it. Did you get a vibe that hair is so important to the creators that it is to the fans?
This is so funny. I mean, I'm not saying the question's bad, but it's just so funny because like reading the responses, it's like, and this is definitely true of all fandoms, that fandoms are not a monolith, and what one person wants in the fandom is not what another person wants in the fandom. But
well said.
But when the prevalent concern over the images that we put up on VF or that it looked too clean or too like, CGI or whatever. And then, I'm trying to tell you how much there are practical effects, practical locations. This does not look like if you compare Jackson's The Lord of the Rings to Jackson's The Hobbit, one has much more CGI in it than the other, right? And I would say this veers much closer to The Lord of the Rings than it does to The Hobbit in terms of what I've seen. And also the effects are even better than they were when Jackson made the Hobbit trilogy. So sometimes those effects are invisible, but I tend to be very CG resistant in general. Like that's just me. I love a puppet. I love like 80s fantasy. I'm a big fan of, stop motion, all that kind of stuff. Like that stuff really does it for me. So
we are Dark Crystal fans, are we not?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Give
me Labyrinth, give me all of that. Give me
Yeah.
Willow. Come on. Like,
yes.
So,
Give me
and I will say
Falcor, the luck dragon. Yes.
yes. So when we got to the Harfoots in the episodes that I saw, when we got to the Harfoots, that felt so Willow to me. And that is the highest compliment I can give anything, is that it felt like Willow to me. That sounds like I'm not answering your question, but let me zoom back around and say, like, do people really want a glow filter on Galadriel all the time? They want like an Instagram. I think it works really well in the Jackson films, especially because especially when she's in Lothlorien, like, it's just all very glowy and you almost feel like you're underwater in those sequences. You know what I mean? And everything's sort of moving slowly. And so I think it really makes sense in that context. But if we're seeing a Galadriel sort of going around and, like, you know, fighting or whatever it is that she's doing, I don't think I personally don't want the moonlight filter on her all the time for that. So what I will say is that the hair that you see in the photos and the footage that you've seen is accurate to what I've seen. Though, as Justin mentioned from the top, I have not seen all the finished digital effects. So maybe they're adding a glow filter to her hair, but I don't think so.
One of the photos that you had in your first report was J.A. Bayona doing the pilot. So we know that's the first 2 episodes with the giant antler things, and then one of the leading shots in the trailer is those things. So the question is, what are those people with the antlers?
Here's what I'll say. Here's what I can say about that. Don't worry too much about it.
Okay, that was the second question. Are they an integral part of the story?
Don't worry too much about it. I think they're very cool visual. I thought that independently when I saw it in the shows, and the fact that Amazon used it as a lead photo and in their teaser means they also thought it was just a cool visual. So it's a very cool practical effect visual, because you see in that it's just guys with horns on their like antlers on their back, but it looks cool. So yeah.
Man, there's so many questions here in Discord and Reddit on hair. Like, does hair play an important part in the narrative? Like, are there reasons? Yeah.
As far as I know, no. As far as I know, and I didn't ask this question specifically, and I feel really bad that I let the fan down that I didn't ask about the short hair on the elves. I didn't. Hopefully the next journalist will. I didn't ask about it. But as far as the story that I've seen so far, it does not seem to be related to the plot. So I'm guessing I'm so clear about speculation versus what I really know. I'm guessing it's an aesthetic decision, but we'll see what hopefully the next journalist asks about both the short hair on the elves and the lack of beards on the female dwarves. I did not ask specifically about either of those.
Is it also possible that we could take a look at where is where is all this Galadriel focus? And there's lots and lots and lots of focus on this really fascinating new representation of Galadriel. But where's her bow? Where's Celeborn? Not a single speck of I mean, a lot of people in the chat were just asking, where is Celeborn? Previously played by Martin Sokas in the original Jackson trilogy.
Yeah. I haven't seen him.
Yep. That means they're saving him for a later season, perhaps.
That would be my guess.
We've got 50 hours of television at least. There's plenty of time. Now, one of the things that Cliff and I have debated for 2 years now is that I was really excited about the idea of young Galadriel and, Galadriel not married, maybe dating, maybe whatever. This kind of, I don't know, like a Riverdale influence. Rivendell.
You scared
in
so
Riverdale.
many Tolkien fans by comparing the show to Riverdale.
I don't know, when we hear young Galadriel and young Elrond, and then we see the trailer and it's young Galadriel, even though the actress is the same age Cate Blanchett was 20 years ago, let's just say that. Is there a vibe of a CW show or elements of?
No. That's the concern that surprised me the most. I think I didn't see that attached to Galadriel. I saw it attached to Bronwyn and Arondir, that people were like, oh, are they giving a CW? And I was surprised by that response because, again, without giving anything major away, I will just say that, like, this idea of sort of star-crossed lovers is a recurring theme in Tolkien's work. Everyone listening to this knows that. The one critique I did see that I thought was interesting is this idea of like, when you have Beren and Luthien, or when you have Aragorn and Arwen, like their rarity of those pairings, and there's like a couple more, the rarity of them though is what makes them so special. And I'm like, well, that's an interesting perspective, and I can understand that. But I also think that if JD and Patrick are trying to give us a story that feels like it's engaging with the themes that Tolkien is interested in, I can understand why a slightly forbidden romance would be part of it, because that's a theme that Tolkien was interested in. So, but it doesn't smack of CW to me at all. No.
Yeah, we're going back to the rights again. And the people in the chat room are still like, there's still confusion about the rights. And there's a comment on Reddit that I think sums it up. Okay, Meneltarma is a mountain that has a flat top, and that is not described as a flat top in the Lord of the Rings text at all.
Yeah.
The maps of Numenor that Amazon released contain details only available in Unfinished Tales. So how is that, those two things, compatible with what Vanity Fair's reporting of they only have Lord of the Rings stuff?
It's a great question that I unfortunately don't have the answer to.
And really great question.
I'm not being coy. I wish I had some of you like lore experts in my pocket when I have been asking questions, so that I would have been known to ask about the flat top of the mountain, but I did not ask about it. I have asked about the maps, and I didn't get a very clear answer on it. So
okay, this comes from one of our regulars in the chat room right now. Is it possible that this only gets a 1-season thing? Like, how committed do you think?
0%. 0% only gets. They paid so much money for this. Are you kidding me? Okay. You asked me earlier if there was reporting that made its way onto the cutting room floor, and that's sort of what the second piece that I put up, that was the answering burning questions thing.
That was great, by the way. Thank you.
That wasn't a follow-up interview I did. That was just me looking through all the answers that I got that I didn't have room for in the written piece that we did. Because the first piece we did is going in the magazine, and when you do magazine writing versus online writing, you're so constrained by the number of pages you have in the magazine for what you can report. And so everything that I wanted to jam in there, my beloved, lovely editor, Jeff Giles, who was incredible in all this, was like, Joanna, I promise we'll let you put all your nerdy shit into a web extra. You can put all that nerd stuff into an online piece that will be put up. And like, true to his word, he just let me go wild, right? But that being said, there's something that I almost put into the web extra that I didn't have room for, but I can tell you, which is, I think a question that you had, Justin, for me when we were talking beforehand was, there's the COVID pause that, they do the first 2 episodes, and then there's a COVID pause. And then it was like, a question was, did they reconfigure the whole show when they shot the back end of the first season? What did they do during that COVID time? Did their understanding of what they want to do with the show fundamentally change? And I can only give you the answer that JD and Patrick gave me. And they were very understanding of that. They're like, we get it. We get that people want to know this. Right. So they said nothing fundamentally changed. And they plotted out their first season, and nothing in that plotting out of the first season changed in the COVID pause. What they took the COVID pause, they took time during the COVID pause to map out season 2. That's what they were doing in the COVID pause. And then sort of like refine some other stuff. And like, maybe there was some gentle refining, but there wasn't any massive structural changes. And the other misapprehension that I've seen floating around is this idea that the first 2 episodes are sort of one thing, and then the rest of the season is something else. That's not the case at all. Like, not even.
Oh, I've been reporting that, guys.
I'm sorry.
I got it wrong.
That's not the case. So
really,
it's one flowing story. So it's not.
It's not a 2-hour prologue for the next 48 hours of television.
It's not.
Okay.
Intriguing.
No.
But even in the new article, it says that there aren't many time jumps aside from leaving the first 2 episodes.
Well, I mean, so what have we seen? We've seen we know the two trees were released in a promo photo, right? And we know that what can I say? I will say some people have made some speculations about some things that they've seen in the first teaser that attributing it to maybe something that happened in the first stage that I would say are pretty good speculations. And so am I saying that there's no first stage stuff in this at all? No, Amazon has already told you that there is, right? But it's not a massive prologue. No.
Got it. One of the fears that people had, or Jeff Bezos early on said, "Bring me the next Game of Thrones," and then they got Brian Cogman, the lore expert on Thrones, to come in and help get the Bible going and everything like that. I was shocked that he wasn't made available in this, since he's such a recognizable, fan-respected name.
Brian also happens to be a really good friend of mine, so I love Brian Cogman. I'm a huge fan of his. He has been very clear, and he's been like very supportive of all the rollout of what he's seen, like if you follow him on social, but in all of those, he's been, because there was this big misapprehension that he was running it. And I think he's really concerned. He does not want to not that he doesn't back the work that he did. And if you know Cogman and you know his work on Thrones and thematically what he's interested in, you'll be able to see it in the show. I was able to see it right away. And I was like texting him, I was like, Brian, I was like, this is you, right? So like I can see his fingerprints on it, but he's very clear that he was only there in a consulting position right at the beginning. Another role that he fulfilled is not just story consultation, but when Brian started on Thrones, DB Weiss and David Benioff had never run a TV show in their lives. And it was actually Brian, because he had worked on like an NBC show, who was like, oh, this is how you write out this is how you break a season. Sort of like Brian has fulfilled that role for a long time of sort of like, this is how TV works. You might be a great storyteller, but this is how TV works. And that was, I think, partially what he was doing they wanted Brian, but Brian, was like, I just spent a really long time in a like high pressure fantasy sort of world. Like, this is not necessarily what I want to be. But he is like very supportive of the guys. And I think he just does not want to steal any thunder from the guys and all this, and does not want the misapprehension out there that he is actually the creator behind this show, because he's not. He left pretty early on in the process.
That's intriguing to know, because it was a bit of a scandal causing factor. I mean, there's a lot of X and Y variables, but when you put in that Brian Cogman Z variable, and we didn't have anything else to know or to go on for such a long time, except knowing that Jeff Bezos had said, bring me the next Game of Thrones, air quotes, it led to weirdness and worry, maybe a lot of unnecessary worry. Even that big article that I wrote with a lot of anxiety about the probability of nudity or sexualized elements of the story, that was because of Cogman's real notorious past with Game of Thrones fans and their response to the way he treated Sansa Stark. Let's not get into it, but you all know what I'm talking about. So now that we know better, it's a little bit of a relief to know that Mr. Cogman was there for, like, I'll do some foundational work and then I'll just leave, instead of him staying there to completely imprint himself on all of the stories and the characters throughout season by season. Because I have to admit, there was, maybe Payne and McKay really wanted Mr. Cogman to come along, but in all honesty, that did cause a few raised eyebrows, to say the least.
I mean, I think with love and respect to you, Cliff, I really love Brian's work in general. We do not need to get into season 5 of Game of Thrones again, but like
love and respect to you too, dear. Yes.
Cogman wrote like my favorite episode of Game of Thrones in the final season, which is a terrible season of television. He wrote one of my favorite episodes of Game of Thrones. So like Cogman is I think a really good sense of storytelling and all of that. That being said, when the news broke about how they're putting together the Lord of the Rings team, all of that was fresh off the end of Thrones. which a lot of people didn't enjoy. So I'm sure a lot of people were like, is this what we want the Lord of the Rings show to be? You know, like all these people who have been saying we're going to bring you a new Game of Thrones, like a lot of people are still licking their wounds from the end of a series that they invested a lot of love and time into that didn't end in a way that they loved. Not everyone. Certainly plenty of people liked the end of Game of Thrones, but I would say the majority is like, that's not what I wanted from the end of that show. So I can understand why people had some trepidation. That being said, I don't think Cogman or anyone in that writer's room, and there's so many smart, talented writers in that writer's room, I don't think any of them wanted to do like orgies in Middle Earth ever or anything like that, you know.
Thank God. Well, thank God we could put all that to rest, and thank God for simple truths. We all understand much more clearly now, and that's the benefit of having time and wisdom, is that you gain perspective. Yes. So
well, look, I want
the fandom to come along with me on that concept. We're getting perspective as we go along, right? That's good. Yes.
And we're not here to litigate the last 2 seasons of Game of Thrones, but you know, a lot of people say that it doesn't look like there was a plan, and I guess that weighs heavy here. Like, did you get a sense that there is a 5-season plan with these showrunners, that they have kind of the constructs, or is there any hint that this is ending with where Fellowship begins?
That's my, I mean, I can't say that for certain, but when they offered up, and they offered up multiple times, sort of their roadmap, and we laid it out in that article of like the 5, I think 4 or 5 big stories that they're interested in telling, involving like Numenor and Sauron and the Forging of the Rings, and the Last Alliance of Elves and Men is on their list. And so like, well, that's, you know, and I think the end after that, right? Last Alliance of Elves and Men, maybe some Isildur stuff after that, and then like call it a day, honestly. So I think that has to be where it ends, and anything else I would say would be speculation, but I think they have the major beats of the whole story laid out. And what I will say, I mean, again, we're not here to relitigate Game of Thrones, but like, well, like let's say Weiss and Benioff and Cogman, etc., Dave Hill, blah blah, had Bran's gonna be, spoilers for Game of Thrones, guys, if you haven't seen it, but like at the end, like Bran Stark's gonna be the king. If they had known that from the start, they would have been building towards that. And the benefit, I'm loving seeing your cat, Cliff, the benefit of this show is that they definitely know where first, you know, Tolkien already wrote it, he finished it, you know, Martin's still working on it, so you know, that's I think there's a better plan than the Thrones guys even had an opportunity to do, because they you know, the map was unfilled out when they started, you know.
You mentioned the 4 storylines or 5 storylines that are in the article. Again, Vanity Fair, it's only like $10 to subscribe, and you can reread these articles all year long for like $10. It's cheaper than what I have to pay for coffee at Starbucks. But
Condé Nast did not pay Justin to say that.
No, I just support Middle Earth journalism. That's all I have to say. Support Middle Earth journalism. But Matt, Nerd of the Rings, and Varking, the head of the subreddit, huge dwarves fans. They're probably #1 dwarves as well. I'm so excited for the dwarves. But you mentioned those 5 main stories. Those are focused on men and elves and old men and Sauron and rings and Ainur and
well, are the dwarves not involved in anything to do with the rings?
I feel like the dwarves have enough of a history to have their own like freaking main storyline, and I didn't get that vibe from the articles.
Okay, fair. I think the fact that they are showing you these dwarf characters that they've shown, and in the teaser trailer, you could see the rock breaking sort of competition thing that's in the trailer.
I want to talk for a full half an hour, but I'm not going to do it, about the rock breaking competition, because obviously it takes us straight back to the Skeksis competing with one another for the throne after the emperor dies in the original 1982 masterpiece. I'm not kidding, but let's continue. Let's go.
That makes me want to do my Skeksis impression. I'll save it for you. But the dwarves,
Go
I
ahead.
will say that
Sorry,
there is plenty for them to do. I can't talk about it, but
Okay. Well, the chat room is saying he didn't break that rock; he woke it up. So what are you guys trying to? And then my personal question out of all this with the dwarves is Peter Mulan just the greatest king
of acting.
Yeah,
yes. Peter Mullen is an incredible actor.
He's a great actor, right?
Yeah,
he is. Hold on, a bit of a lore dive. There are 9 rings for mortal men, but there are 7 for the dwarf lords, and that is a direct reference to the lineage of the 7 clans of the dwarves. And here they are, a very quick list. The Longbeards, most famous, they were Durin's folk. The Longbeards. We'll be dealing with them, obviously, in the Rings of Power. But there's also the Firebeards, the Broadbeams, Iron Fists, the Stiffbeards, Blacklocks, and Stonefoots. That means we might possibly get 7 chieftains of these 7 different clans of dwarves in this. We have to see Sauron distributing these rings. Ultimately, that's why I'm leading that thought down the path of we're going to get plenty of new characters in the lords and masters of men who are corrupted by Sauron, as well as some dwarf lords who might be skeptical, but they're still going to be approached by Sauron. And it's going to be so cool to see all this happen we've never seen it before. It's always been written in the back of the book. We've never seen it. And the novelty of that is kind of the most powerful draw for me personally.
No, I mean, something that JD and Patrick told me is that when they first went in, I think for their first pitch or one of their pitches that they did, and they pitched for a long time as you would on a project like this, there was like a whiteboard and they drew a tiny something in the middle of the whiteboard. And they're like, this is the map of Middle Earth so far that people have seen. And this is what we want to show them. And so I can neither confirm or deny, Cliff, anything that you just said about the Dwarven Lords, but I think they are interested in showing us wide array of cultures of Middle Earth and a wide array of locations. I think that's something they're very interested in. So I can't imagine. And the other thing I will say to soothe the concerned dwarf fans out there is that, and I said this on the Twitter Spaces conversation, I gasped when I saw Khazad-dûm, like when I saw the first shot of like sort of descending into Khazad-dûm. I was
cool,
dazzled by it, and they built that. I know they built that. They told me they did. So they're not going to do that to sideline the dwarves. They're not going to like design this incredible, dazzling world and then barely go to it. Again, that's a guess. That's a guess based on logic. That's not, I know that for certain.
Yeah, that's a great framing. And then,
yes,
do you see, in your opinion, do you see opportunities in this series? Again, we're going for 5 seasons or more. For big epic stunt casting, like a Russell Crowe or something like that. Does this series feel like this is a place where someone could slot in to a character and get lost in Tolkien's lore?
Okay, I don't mean to keep going back to Thrones, but as at the Dragon Demands knows, that is the world that I worked in for a really long time, the fandom that I worked in for a really long time. And what I will say is, with Thrones, some of that stunt casting in the later seasons, I wasn't personally a fan of, like mixed results, right? Like Max von Sydow, I mean, if you consider that stunt casting, which I kind of do, but like Max von Sydow I thought was like great, but Ian McShane just feels like he's Ian McShane wandering around Westeros, or don't get me started on Ed Sheeran, like stuff like that. I don't want Ed Sheeran in Middle Earth, no disrespect meant, but when they did other like
I see fire.
but fire. Could they? I mean, I suppose it just depends how it's done. I will just say, opinion wise, I don't really want it. I prefer to like get like I think the casting of Morthath Clark in I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce it because she's Welsh. I think the casting of Morpeth Clark is incredible because she's not super well known. Though if you haven't seen Saint Maud, I really recommend you go see it because she is astonishing in that. And if you want to like get a preview of how a Galadriel that might go toe to toe with Cate Blanchett going like photo negative in the Fellowship of the Ring, like that's the performance that she gives in that film. But she's in that film, she's got a tiny role in His Dark Materials on HBO. Like I was aware of her, but she's such a perfect casting for this because people aren't coming in with preconceived notions of her, and so she can just become Galadriel for them. The same with Rob Arameo, who people know from Thrones a little bit, but not really. Like he could just, in theory, maybe become Elrond for them if they want. I saw a question that I feel really comfortable answering, which was like, did I have a favorite performance?
Yeah,
that I saw so far and what I've seen. And I will say, and I'm glad I can speak to it because they revealed her in the teaser. I think Markella Cavanaugh, who plays Nori Brandyfoot, the Harfoot, she's my standout by far. I just loved everything that she did. And I think, I think stories about elves and men and dwarves are all very fun and interesting. But for me, it doesn't really feel like it's Tolkien without a Hobbit or a Harfoot there. And I feel like once she showed up, I was like, I'm locked in. I get it. Here we are.
Right.
I'm so
but
excited.
We have to acknowledge it's a bit of a lore squeeze.
Yep. It is.
I mean, maybe we could coin that term. They're just squeezing it and squishing it like it's silly. They're trying to find malleability in the lore so that they can get that element of the everyman aspect of a halfling or a proto-hobbit, proto-halfling in the show. And everybody, in many past assessments, some of my own in the past, we realized that Samwise is the everyman who allows most of the readers an entry point into the series. And we follow along Sam and his transformation as Samwise is participating in a legend that is actually forming around him, and actions that he's participating in become part of the legend of the War of the Ring. And in a very self-reflexive moment, Samwise even says that to Frodo when they're wandering around near the crossroads, and they're saying, I wonder if they'll ever tell stories about us, So at the very end of the bloody book, it's not when Frodo leaves on the ship, it's when Samwise comes back home. And Professor Tolkien is telling us that Samwise has to acknowledge that he's done participating in the story. And that's where the audience has been with the whole time. It's not Frodo, it's Sam that we've been with the whole time. So
I think
they wanted to bring in halflings into the series because it is essential
but that's
to
the
how
fear
we identify with Tolkien, the essence of it.
That's the fear that a lot of fans have, though, is that hobbits were our entry point into the previous films, and I think there is a fear that there's so much good stuff in the Second Age that they don't want this show to be told from the Harfoot's perspective.
Right.
I don't think it's accurate to say it's told from the Harfoot's perspective. And I think what's also true, and we've reported this out, so it doesn't feel like I'm not allowed to say this, like the Harfoots that we see are nomadic, and they have a rule that they don't engage with the bigger folk. That's not something that they do. And I was reading a piece on Harfoots today that over on the Looper, which they're putting in a lot of great lore content, and they pulled up a quote from Theoden King talking about the hobbits and how they can sort of like vanish in a twinkling. You know what I mean? Like that they are known to hide. And so like when you talk about lore squeezing, I don't think they're squeezing it in a way where they can't point to the text and say, here's our justification for this. Like, here's where we got the idea for this. It's from the book. It's from a quote from the book. You're not going to see a Harfoot, like helping forge the ring, as far as I know. Okay. You're not going to see a Harfoot like forging the rings or fighting a Balrog or anything like that. As far as I know, like they're not bending the text that far. That's not something they're interested in doing.
Okay.
And they know how mad that would make me.
Okay.
And then I'm trying to find a safe way to ask this next question. Is there a definite perspective? Is this show being told from a certain perspective?
That's a great question.
Hmm.
Like, is there? Well, I mean, here's what I'll say. They were careful. Amazon was very careful over and over again to call this an ensemble cast. And I don't think it's inaccurate, though people looking at what we've gotten so far will not be surprised to see a lot of Galadriel stuff. Galadriel, you could say Galadriel and Elrond, but like really Galadriel, because Morphy Clark looks so much more like Cate Blanchett than Rob Aramayo looks like Hugo Weaving, is the most recognizable, identifiable character for people who have just seen the Jackson films to latch onto, right? So like Amazon wants everyone to be in on the show. They want the deep dive lore loving. I've read every single one of Tolkien's letters and listened to lectures and have been studying this for years. They want those people excited. And I think there's so much I know I sound like a shill right now, but like there's so many like little details in them that I think are going to make people who are engaging on that level really excited. But I think also for people who like maybe just saw the Jackson films in the theaters once, 20 years ago, they want those people excited too. And like Galadriel, I think, is the best way for them to be like, hey, see, it's sort of recognize, you see this, it's like that thing you liked that one time. And
Yeah.
that's a roundabout answer. I wouldn't say this is Galadriel's show, or this is the Harfoot show, or this is Elrond's show, or anything like that. I think it's or this is the Numenor show, or anything like that. I think it's just more, you have to think of it more like Thrones, where it's like, okay, here we go, we're with Daenerys right now, and now we're with Arya, and now like that. That's, I think, more how you should think about it.
Okay. Cliff brought up like Celeborn and some characters we don't see. I guess is there any way you can help fans reconcile the idea that not all the characters may be in the first season, and they're creating new characters? Like, I think fans are having a hard time reconciling that they don't need to create new characters. Tolkien already listed a bunch, but it's like you do need to create new characters because there's a lot of story to tell and a lot of time to go through.
Yeah. I would say that, like, well, okay, this is a bad example. I thought I had a really good example, and now I've decided it's not a great example. But I was going to say something like, if you were just reading the appendices of what happened in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, if you're going to read the appendices version of that, a character like Rosie Cotton might not make the list. No, she probably would, because it would have been like Samwise Gamgee married Rosie Cotton in the year of blah blah. Probably she would be in there. But like a character like that is not a big part of the history that you boil down for the appendices, something like that, right? Like a small character. But if you're putting together the whole world, you want your Rosie Cotton, since she's important, she matters, and so I think it's stuff like that that's like doesn't rise to the level of historical record maybe, but is important to tell a fully fleshed out story. So this here's something I'll tell you that I'm really excited about. This is not a spoiler. I don't have this information, but I'm sure you're fine, folks listening and watching and reading are interested in this. The Nazgul, the 9 kings, we know so little about them, right? So doesn't in the Amazon, again, it's not a spoiler, but doesn't the Amazon show have a really rich opportunity to introduce us to all of those men, and so that when they fall, it is a tragic story, because maybe we've seen like Boromir's fall or something, like, like maybe we've seen the good in them and the potential weakness in them, and so when we lose them, we're going to feel the loss of them. Well, they have to invent those characters for us to care about before they show the fall of those characters. Again, that's pure speculation, but that's I think a justifiable reason to add 9 characters into here that we may or may not have names for, right?
And that
Indeed.
goes
That makes
that,
sense.
that goes
Indeed.
back to my stunt casting comment. I think our April Fool's joke last year was that Mel Gibson and Russell Crowe had been cast as two of the kings that get corrupted, and there's like a meta joke there, right?
Yeah.
Of course they're kings. Of course they would be kings. Of course they're corrupted. They're so that's what. I guess it's in my heart of hearts. That's what I personally want. I don't know if all fans agree with that. But like this idea of like there are 9 kings of men, 7 rulers of dwarves. There's a lot of corruption to
Yeah.
be had.
And a lot of,
And-
I mean, like, so the guys pointed this out explicitly when they said the way that they want to present Isildur and Elendil and all of that sort of stuff is like, let's spend time with Isildur. Like, let's spend a lot of time with him so that when it all shakes out the way it does, we really feel that. We really feel, what happened to this guy. Again, the fall of Boromir, if you want to call it that. Like, what happens with Boromir is one of my favorite stories in that Tolkien ever told. I think it's an incredibly interesting story. And so because it's in the gray, it's in the moral gray. And so I think the opportunity to tell those moral grays of like, well, what would you do? Well, Boromir thought he needed this to protect. Well, what corruption would you allow seep into your life in order to protect the things that you feel like you need to protect? All that sort of stuff. And so I just find that kind of storytelling really interesting. And one of your commenters, I mean, I'm cheating because I'm also reading some of the comments, but like one of your commenters in the YouTube was like, Halbrand is the Witch King of Angmar, like I'm calling it, right? I think that's a great theory. I have my theory board's already going, guys. But that's sort of the fun of the show is like there's that opportunity for like as much as we know what's happens, like is Halbrand the witch? Like that would be a very interesting story to tell, I think. Or I don't know the answer, but it's on my long list. It's not on my list, or like who's the Meteor Man? Is that Sauron? Is that Gandalf? Is that like those are the questions people are asking themselves. That's kind of the fun. I think some people are a little nervous. This is going to be a mystery box show. It's not going to be a mystery box show. It's going to show you a lot of stuff you already know, but it does have that fun speculation element where we as book readers, this was my favorite thing to do with Game of Thrones, where we as book readers get to dive in the text and be like, well, on page 325, and if you look at the sigil on this person's it could be like, that's fun to me. And so I think there's a real opportunity for that in the show.
It is. Leaning into the chat here, people are asking about Eregion and Linden acting as regions. Now, we know that they are regions of geographic land, but the article suggested that they were capitals, not
I think that might just be a misuse of language. I think they describe Linden as the capital. The elf capital Linden is language that Amazon has used. But whether they mean capital region versus a capital city within inside Linden, I think they're just being a little imprecise with their language in a way that wouldn't bother 85% of the people, but definitely the 15% of people who care. I hear you, but I have no sense that they're going to be inaccurate with the geography.
The funniest thing, I don't think we've talked about this yet, but now that you guys have all seen the trailer, and I think I'd seen some of the leaks, one of our earliest rumors was the nudity thing. That there was going to be nudity, and then Cliff did all this research, and we did this whole thing, and then we heard that the nudity was limited to like a Terminator type arrival, where he arrives in a ball of flame and electricity, and he stands up and he's naked. So I hear that the loincloth that we see on Meteor Man is CG. Like maybe they did shoot that nude and they've added a loincloth in CG.
Oh, okay.
So, good CG.
Honestly, classic. Yeah, and I mean, like, I think if memory serves, and you guys would remember better than I would, but when you wrote that piece, Cliff, a great piece that I thought was really interesting in terms of why you were like, we don't want this.
Thank you.
That news came all through the fact that they hired an intimacy coordinator. Isn't that right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So I can imagine if we have a character like Nori encountering this man and a meteor, and you've got a young actress there, and you've got an adult man who's like that they would want someone on set to be like, is everyone feeling safe and comfortable with this?
Makes perfect sense.
And maybe there was never
Yeah.
full frontal, but maybe we saw some Meteor Man butt. Maybe that happened. And then they were like, we don't even want to do the butt. Let's put a loincloth on. I don't know. Again, that's not reported. That's speculation, but that's a case where I could see that happening.
Do you know, we already got the extended edition of An Unexpected Journey where we get dwarf butts playing in the fountain. So we've already been there and done that.
You don't want it. Sure.
Right? I'm not joking, people. They're snapping each other with wet towels while they're playing in the fountain, and they cut to Hugo Weaving looking absolutely disgusted with the affair. So yeah, we've been there. We've already been there. So
and Cliff and I hear different rumors. Like, I've heard that they're not going to reveal who Sauron is in the first season. Cliff has heard rumors that he knows exactly who Sauron is. And you've only seen 3 episodes.
Cliff? Do you?
What?
Okay. All right. I just want to put you on the spot, so you had to use your poker face. Okay. Yeah.
Look at him. He can't. He didn't know I was going to bring it up.
Is your question?
I'm sorry. I was looking at the chat just now.
Is your question? Do I know?
Said that was a rather. Sorry.
Do I know who Sauron is after 3 episodes? Is that your question?
Yeah. Let's go there.
Okay.
Well, there you go.
Was that a red card?
That was a red card. Oh, listen, that's the first one I pulled, so I think we're doing pretty well.
Yeah.
I was expecting a red card this whole conversation, but I think we're doing pretty well.
Oh, I've been working on my questions all day long. Like, what's a safe way of asking this? Also, because I told Cliff what he heard, I don't want to know because I don't want to be spoiled.
Okay.
I want to go in a little bit
I'll text you later, Cliff, and you can let me know what you know.
I think the earliest rumors was remember we reported this a year and a half ago that Galadriel was on a raft with a guy that might be Sauron, and that shows up in the trailer. And then we got the rumors about Harfoots, and that shows up in the trailer. And then we got this rumor about a fireball, a meteor man, and that shows up in the trailer. The vibe I got is that Amazon has only released stuff that is leaked.
Does that make you feel powerful, Justin? Like, do you feel like you're controlling?
Well, I wonder if we're being controlled. I wonder if we're being.
Are they trying to feed the fan speculation machine? Yes, because that is smart marketing.
Yeah. Here's what I'll say. I don't know anything about that, but I will say I know for a fact that Thrones did some intentional leaking like that. So it's not unheard of in the realm of genre.
Yeah. This question might get a card. I didn't see Weta Workshop or Weta Digital in your first look. Like, everybody wants to know. They shot in New Zealand. They showed a bunch of practical stuff. Any hints that Weta Workshop is involved? Red card. All right, moving on. New Zealand. They shot in New Zealand. They got a big tax break. The country of New Zealand was so excited.
Yeah.
In your reporting, did you talk to anyone on that side of the ocean and get a vibe of,
I did. We didn't end up reporting out this story as much as I would have liked to, probably. With all the things that we had to put in there, but we did ask them about the move. And I think that the fact that they're shooting future seasons in England, honestly, I think it's a logistical thing, but I do know that the expectation, I know you've done some good reporting around this idea that there was like sort of a cottage industry of it's so funny because, sorry, this is a total aside, but something I when I was reporting on Cowboy Bebop, the like failed Netflix adaptation of the wonderful anime, one of the things that I read about that is the fact that they couldn't hire anyone to work on that show because Lord of the Rings had hired up everyone. So when they were trying to make Cowboy Bebop in New Zealand, like they were working with with love and respect to people who worked on that show, some dregs because they could not get maybe their first, second, third, fourth pick. So yeah, like were there people, stunt people, production, like all kinds of people who were expecting that they were going to have 5, 6, 8 more years of this highly expensive production there? Yeah. Do I see how that would be really frustrating and disappointing to those people? Absolutely. Yeah. I do. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Oh, well, let's go.
I know people who were really invested down in New Zealand in working on that show for years and years and years, anticipating that the production would stay a while at least. So it really is a bit of ugliness. It is a blemish on the history of this in terms of the way the fans feel loyal. There's still a strong sense of New Zealand loyalty, for lack of a better descriptor. Do you know what I'm getting at?
I do. I know what you mean. I think people associate New Zealand with Middle Earth. I know that people go to New Zealand just to visit the Shire or whatever. Like that's a thing. So I can understand. I can understand those feelings. I'll be really curious to see if we'll be able to tell a demonstrable difference between the seasons shot in England and those shot in New Zealand. Vista wise. Like I honestly don't know if they've already gathered all the Vista B-roll that they need, because you certainly can't match, or if they plan to go back there just to send the drones around to capture coastlines and mountainsides and stuff like that. I don't know the answer to that.
I think a lot of fans have been nervous about Wheel of Time and Witcher and all these other fantasy shows. They don't want Lord of the Rings to look like those shows. I don't know what that means.
Sorry. I just remembered one more quote that JD and Patrick gave us when we asked them about that idea of vistas and locations. They said, "This is tantalizing. I don't know what it means. I'll let you parse it." They're like, "Our characters are on the move. So you'll understand that it'll make sense that maybe we won't have access to the same vistas." Essentially, I'm paraphrasing badly, but basically the fact that maybe we'll get brand new locations in season 2, so it will make sense that it was shot elsewhere. That was my interpretation of what they were saying.
I mean, the thing is that I don't know what to tell fans that you can only you shoot a movie with the same cameras, as everything everything's shot with the same equipment. What makes Lord of the Rings look different than anything? I think there's a fear by moving to the UK that Amazon's going to start sharing crew and everything. It's just let's go shoot Wheel of Time. All right, let's go shoot Carnival Row. All right, next Lord of the Rings, and just this pipeline of.
That's just a studio, though. The thing is they are building a home studio in the UK because they're tired of filming. I don't know about tired, but they've been filming in Bulgaria and all over the world. Wheel of Time, Carnival Row, as you say, have been in Eastern Europe, New Zealand. They're consolidating all of that. It will make production easier on all of their stuff. Will that mean that everything looks the same? I don't know. It depends if you think everything that comes out of Warner Brothers looks the same. Looks similar often, but does it look exactly the same? No, but that's just a studio. So they're building a home base so that they can better sort of manage their productions. I think all of that makes a lot of logistical sense to me. In terms of, will this show look like The Witcher or Wheel of Time, which are the two big concerns that I have also seen from people, right? Based on the still photos, especially, I think stirred that up in people. And what we were trying to tell people is these are portraits. They're not, the moving images that you're going to see. All I will say is this. When I saw the Wheel of Time screeners that we got, which were finished, they had digital effects, they were finished. I spent a long time thinking about why that show didn't look as good as I thought it should have, because they didn't have nearly as much money as they did for Lord of the Rings, but they still had a ton of money for Wheel of Time. And I know, it's a hugely popular show with a hugely devoted or a hugely popular book series with a hugely devoted readership. I know they wanted it to look incredible, but there was something slightly off, I thought, with the production design and the costumes, the physical locations I thought looked dazzling, but like the built sets and the costumes all looked just not, it looked costumey.
Yeah,
And
cosplay.
like the stones looked like, well, I don't know, I've seen some cosplay that's a lot better than that, you know what I mean? But like and like the stones looked like they were made of foam, you know, like I was just sort of like, where did the money go for this? I did not feel that way watching the Lord of the Rings footage. That's not how I felt at all with that. And like your mileage may vary and you might disagree with me, but like it doesn't look like The Witcher or Wheel of Time to me at all.
That's the vibe I got. You know, the interesting thing you posted, we found the first Vanity Fair first look from 20 years ago, and the interesting thing comparing those first look photos 20 years ago, they looked like how the movie felt, which is it's almost like they looked like grainy film stock was used. They were all character pieces. They weren't screenshots from a set. It was like literally Dominic Monaghan holding a pipe, you know, with it. Like they were, I don't know, there was something different about more artistic, maybe.
It is different in that looking at the photo credits on that, my understanding is Vanity Fair sent a photographer to the set versus Amazon sent us photographs that they,
and that's because of COVID. You know, and we all know no one could get into New Zealand for the last 2 years. Like,
yeah, so Amazon sent us the art versus us sending a photographer out there, and that's not something I mean, that was a huge exception that we made for this because we cared so much about doing this story. But we don't usually, usually promo photos taken by the studio or the network, that's something you see in no knock to them. And honestly, rest in peace to their print edition. That's an Entertainment Weekly look, right? Yeah. First look, stills from the movie.
Yeah, Empire Magazine.
Yeah, Vanity Fair first look. If you think about like the Dune first look that we did, or our Star Wars covers that we've done. That's when Annie Leibovitz goes to like Tunisia, and photographs Adam Driver in the middle of the desert and like, so it's like, it's definitely, it's different. And I understand that it feels different.
Well, if they provided photos, are there any photos that almost made the cut that you thought, oh, the fans would like this, and maybe your editor was like, oh, we need to be a little more mass market?
Not mass market, but like there were many conversations about like one on Thanksgiving Day, honestly, about which photos were going to be in this piece and which weren't. And I will say, because now you've seen him in the teaser, like we had a beautiful portrait of Benjamin Walker's Gil-galad that I was like, I think people would be interested in this, and didn't make the cut. And like I agree with some of the decisions made, and I was pushing for some other, but like that's where we are at the end of the day. I love all the photos. I mean, basically, if it were up to me, we would have put like all the photos we got, but we got so many photos, so we could.
It's all digital now. Like you don't have to print extra pages. Yeah. Like you could have just.
Well, no, that's up to Amazon, because here's what I really respect what Amazon's doing. Like if in my world, because I can be a little greedy, I want to give you every single name of every actor playing every character that we've seen. That's what I want to give you. I want to give it to you on Vanity Fair, and I want you to pay $10 a month because you're like, all the information's here, blah, blah. Amazon is like, hey, it's February. We want to keep doling these cookies out over the next few months until the September release. And we want to let some other outlets have some fun in sharing these things with people. Something that drove me crazy about the Thrones coverage is for the last 5 to 6 seasons, HBO only went to one outlet, and that really frustrated me, because partially I'm sure because of jealousy, but also because it feels weird to have just one reporter have all the access, because like then it doesn't feel like you're getting multiple perspectives on something. You're just getting like one person, right, is the tap that you turn on to release your first looks. So as much as greedy as I am that I want to have all the debuts and all the news, I like that Amazon is going to these other outlets, as they will over the next few months, to say, here's your first look at Isildur or Elendil or whatever else that, that they're holding back for you guys.
Cliff, what is your one ask? What do you wish you would have seen? One character, one object.
Yeah, definitely Celebrimbor. I want to see Celebrimbor with a hammer and tongs working over some molten ring making chaos in the whole. I want to see the elven smiths behind him watching, learning while he's doing this ring craft, and then into the frame reaches one long slender hand with a golden robe and guiding Celebrimbor's hand to a different position with the tongs.
Okay, so now it sounds like you're not only pitching being a writer for later seasons, but now you want to be on the marketing team, right? Here's your next teaser, guys.
Ready? I want to see Anatar teaching Celebrimbor this most specific thing, because everybody lives and breathes around the destruction of the ring. The entire story of the War of the Ring is the biggest piece of storytelling that Tolkien achieved. It is his greatest achievement, arguably, the Lord of the Rings and the War of the Ring. The downfall, the actual proper title is the War of the Ring and the Downfall of the Lord of the Rings. Or maybe I've got it backwards. But here we are at a position of the genesis of this. And I'm going to reach into Frank Herbert for a second, and I'm going to quote Dune, where Virginia Madsen gets faded into the shot, and David Lynch is giving us pure Virginia Madsen. And she says, a beginning is a very delicate time. And don't you think that's applicable to what Payne and McKay are dealing with right now? This is the beginning of the next big phase of Tolkien being adapted and represented in popular culture in a visual medium. It's the beginning of something so important for fandom and for their careers and for, the ambitions and satisfaction that Amazon would like to achieve. We're on the threshold of the beginning of it. It is a very, very delicate time. So thank you, Frank Herbert, for that wisdom from the past. But I'm telling you, I know I don't envy them. I do not envy them at all. And the task that they have taken up, walking in the shadow of Peter Jackson and everything that's come before. I mean, it's just wild. It's really kind of wild when you think about it, really.
There's a bunch of so this has been constant for this extra long conversation, and we've gone much, much longer than I thought we were going to be, because this is amazing. I just want to say to the chat room, I see the hundreds of comments about Howard Shore, and the One Ring reported that you heard Howard Shore in the teaser of the title. That was incorrect. And then you saw Amazon Prime post a comment saying, yes, you heard Howard Shore. And then they deleted that comment. So I think it's a complicated thing. And we've heard from our pals in the music biz that it is complicated. So I think there's a very specific reason that you don't see Howard Shore mentioned in any of the 3 Vanity Fair articles. And we were just talking about marketing. Maybe they want to save it for a big, marketing splash or whatever. But we don't know. We just don't. We know Bear McCreary's involved. And as I understand, you heard Bear McCreary's music in the teaser of the title teaser. But this trailer, I don't think, had any music from Howard Shore or Bear McCreary. So that's the music thing. So final thing before we let you go, Joanna, this has been wonderful. No context spoiler. Is there a nickname that just can you just give us something that is just no context?
Oh, that's really fun.
I feel like I'm gonna get red carded right now.
No, I'm just trying to come up with something really fun that I can point to. It's I don't know if you guys watch Succession, but the actress who plays J. Smith Cameron was on Colbert, and she said something about cat or something as her no context spoiler, and it was a great payoff 7 episodes in. to last season, so I'm like trying to be on Jerry from Succession's level, which is a
That's
high
a high bar.
a high bar. But gosh,
Is there a character nickname somewhere?
I don't have. I mean, if you're thinking of something, you're trying to lead the witness. I don't know what.
No, I'm not. I really.
I'm sorry. If I come up something, I'll like tweet it at you or something like that. How
Yeah.
about that?
Okay.
I'll let you know.
Yeah. Just
Okay.
hashtag no context spoiler.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't even have to say what. Yeah. Just tag us in it, and I think we'll get it. Well, the chat room is saying you have to come back at some point because this has just been a wonderful thing, and I'm sure as more stuff gets released over the next 8 months, you'll be able to talk informed about stuff. There's a lot you can't talk about now.
If you want, I mean, please, obviously the onering.net is a great source for all things Tolkien. You guys have been in this biz forever. I'm chasing your glory, but I'm over at the Ringer now full time. That's what I do. So I will be doing pieces over there. With some like hopefully informed as I can be, explorations of some of this stuff. So yeah.
That's awesome. And the Ringer
Indeed.
you're on podcasts over there, you're publishing over there. And I know Cliff would just love to be a guest for whatever reason.
Of course.
Cliff knows how I feel about him. I love him. So,
I love it. Thank you.
Only if he wears
you're
the
very
Hugh Hefner
generous.
dressing robe,
I just want to thank you and your beautiful kitty cat for being so generous with your time to come and join us tonight.
It's been a blast.
Joanna,
Thank
it's
you,
really
guys.
great to have you here.
Thanks.
So everybody give her a follow on Twitter, at Joe Wrote This. Did I say that right?
Yeah,
I got that right.
this.
And then you can find her on the Ringer, and Lord of the Rings isn't your only beat. You're covering everything right now.
It's true, guys. The lore stuff that I'm going to try to hold in my head this year between House of the Dragon and Rings of Power and Obi-Wan and Moon Knight and whatever, like that's my beat right over there is all this nerd stuff, which I love, but it's a lot of lore, so please be kind to me if I get something wrong. I'm doing my best.
And before we go, I have some Green Dragon gossip, but it doesn't have to do with Lord of the Rings this week, folks. I hope I don't get in trouble, but since there are no Star Wars fans here, I can tell you that on Friday at a recording studio in Los Angeles, an orchestra assembled under the baton of John Williams, and the name on the door said Kenobi.
That's so exciting.
He's back. And that's how we want to feel about Howard Shore. So come on, Amazon, just give it to us. So this is Torrent Tuesday. We're here every Tuesday, 5 p.m. We've got so much to dive into over the coming weeks, and so many juicy rumors. And I want to thank everybody that joined us on Sunday. Tolkien Professor Matt, Nerd of the Rings. A New Better Do Better on TikTok is just one of the most awesome accounts. My LSR, it was great to see Anna Maria come in, like Kelly Rice. We just had such a wonderful, and thank you Tim Gray from Variety for like popping into our little Geek Fest too. So, but thank you, Joanna, for today. This is everything that I wanted to know and stuff that I still want to know, but I know you can't tell us.
I know. Thank you guys so much. Again, I really couldn't have done any of this without you, your community. Justin was so helpful, responding to like every frantic text I sent him, hooking me up with a bunch of like interesting scholars and just thank you, Justin, for all.
And to be clear, folks, I only helped connect her with people. I didn't get the lore wrong. Cliff's the lore expert. I wasn't.
Oh yeah, if anything's wrong, it's not Justin's fault. Let's be clear.
That's awesome.
All right. Thank you, guys.
It's a group effort. We've got a lot of people in our community on our end of it helping to run things on the website and on our new Discord. So a quick reminder, everybody join Varking, Runesong, and thousands of other happy ringers all yakking it up over there on our new Discord. Really great sub-channels and announcements over there, as well as stuff we have on our socials on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and of course the main website, theonering.net. And also You can find me at QuickBeam2000 on Instagram, Twitter, and God forbid, Joanna, your Twitter handle again, please.
At Joe Wrote This.
That's right. At Joe Wrote This. Justin's big idea, not to be unmentioned. So it's now time to say good night, everybody, and good luck. Next week, Tuesday, we're going to have a lot more mischief and a lot more fun as we explore this wild carpet ride, this crazy ride we're all taking together as Amazon gets ready to bring us The Lord of the Rings of Power, this coming September, later this year. Thank you for sticking with us, and thank you, everybody, for being open-handed and open of heart and mind. That egalitarian quality is what makes us the best fandom, and boy, is this ship sailing strong. We're sailing strong. Until then, until next Tuesday, everybody, good night and good luck. I also like to say buenos noches y buena suerte. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.